YouTube. Minute. This is going to be a video on what is the real problem, race, gender, and/or social economic class. And the real problem, of course, is class, in my opinion. Now, I want to make something clear. That is not to say race, and I'm not going into gender. Race, I'm not saying that race is not a problem. Obviously, I think that it is. I think that if you look at statistics and the disproportionate amount of black people in prison, the disproportionate amount of black people out of work, the disproportionate amount of, I'm not sure what the homeless population ratio is, but probably homeless people, disproportionate amount of black people oppressed. Even in terms of military, from my understanding, they are more than proportionate to the number of people in the military. The amount of people who obviously don't go to college in many cases, the amount of people oppressed in many various different ways. If you look at the vast number of black people by shooting deaths, police brutality cases, and other things, black people rank probably proportionately. That's not to say that there are more of them than any other group, but proportionally, if you look at the amount of them compared to the amount of other people, they are number one in that list. But here's the problem with going down that line of thought. I don't think, and here is the problem, I don't think that it's not that white, here's what you need to explain, or rather, let me say this. Race is not the entire issue, and I'm not even sure, or don't even think race is the core of the issue. And it's not so much that rich whites or whoever may be running the show, let's say, even if they weren't white, but certainly rich white people, it's not that they care about white people either, or they don't care about the poor in general. They don't care about poor people. They don't care about lower working class people lower in the economic or social economic scale. It's just that if there is a hierarchy or some hierarchical order of things, I would argue that poor blacks or Hispanic people rank last on that list. They rank at perhaps the least of their, at the lowest level of their concern. But that's not to say that they care about. That's not to say that they care about blacks really that's not to say they care about white people either. And really, when you get right down to it, but the problem, really, let me say, is not race. It's certainly not gender. It's economic class. And what drives them at the end of the day is their ability to extort the labor of other people and the workers of the world, to exploit your labor and cha-ching, make that dollar, that's what they're worried about. And they're running train on all your asses. They don't care about what race you are, sexual orientation you are, gender you are. They just want to make money. And I think really when you get right down to it, the problem really isn't even economic class. The problem at the end of the day really comes back down to one thing and one thing specifically, or one thing only, and that is greed. Or let me be more clear, more specific in that, what motivates them is the same thing that motivated them to bring slaves over from Africa and kill probably millions of Africans, by the way, getting them here during the Black Holocaust or the transatlantic slave trade, to bring them to the United States to work in fields and to do vast amounts of labor from various parts of Africa or different parts of the world. And of course, by the way, that also put white people out to work as well. So those white people that would be paid something to work in fields weren't being paid in many cases at all, and that only worsened the economic burden on many white people. And then, of course, the whites in the slaves themselves ended up getting drafted to fight the Civil War for these rich-ass white cocksuckers in the South. When they're being exported, then they have to fight the war for the people exporting them. But it's also the same thing that drove them to drive out Native Americans, not so much for territorial expansion of lower classes, though that had a part in it too. At that point, we were still, obviously, it was just to gain territory, but one of the reasons to gain territory was for what else? To gain and to succeed in achieving more place for industry, to build more industry. for the United States to have more places to build ship out boxes, make shit, sell shit, buy shit, whatever. Um, it's the same reason that they now allow illegal immigration, but only under the confines of they're not legal. So why is that? Because in that way, or in that situation, in that case, they can now bring in immigrants, work them for a fraction of and or half of what they would work somebody else for, if even that much money, treat them like shit, not treat them properly, not have to fucking cover Medicare or any other fucking form of economic, anything else with them like they would someone else, make profit, and then not have to worry about being reported to the authorities because these people can't report them because they're not supposed to be here. So you now have them between a rock and a hard place. It's the same thing that motivated them to screw everyone, including the illegal immigrants, by taking jobs in this country that would go to someone here and then ship those jobs to other countries, often countries we went to war with in war-torn areas, to work people in the shops. And that was the same thing that destroyed some of these people's economy in places like Mexico and Latin America and different places, was the outsourcing or exporting of jobs to those countries, then taking those jobs, once the corporations found somewhere they can work people for even less money or cheaper wages, they would then take those jobs and they would then export them to those countries to work people for less money, so that they can work someone for 50 cents a day. They can work children in sweatshops, and they can get away with that and then not have to pay people any of the money they would have to pay, say, a white person or a black person or a legal immigrant of some kind, Hispanic person, whoever. You would not have to pay them a fraction of the money that you would now have to pay an American citizen. So it's cheap labor, and that was what drove them. What drives them essentially is what I was initially getting at. My point here is not even class. It's certainly not race. It's not gender, and it's not it's really not even economic class. It is sociopathy, it's psychopathy. These people are psychopaths, and they have greed. They have an incredible amount of greed and unsatiated greed. They want more and more for themselves and less for everyone else. But obviously, the poor in general are not high on their list, and certainly poor black people are not very high on the list of rich white people, the people that run this country. But they're not concerned with anyone. And if you don't believe that, again, look at what they have done to the environment and the planet, the very planet they live on, and how they have wrecked it. And now they're looking for fucking other planets to go to fuck up. And now we're going to go to other planets and fuck them up. Because it's not enough that you fuck this planet up, let's fuck up some other planet. But if you look at what they did, I mean, if they don't even care about the earth they live on, then what makes you think they care about some supposed race that they might be a part of? You know, it's loose and blurred of a concept if that is at this point, and always was. Who's to even say what a race is? But let's say there was a race. If they don't even care about the planet they live on, what makes you think they care about their race? They don't even care about the species, the planet, the country. They don't care about anything. They certainly don't care about the race or their race. And gender, don't make me laugh. If you think that they're looking out for their other men, you know, we're going to pay men more money. If they did that, it would only be to fucking fire all the men and then just hire a bunch of women to work cheaper labor. You know, and of course they haven't done that. You have plenty of men working shitty jobs, so it's not true. But it's all about capitalist exploitation of the lower classes. It's about capital. It's about Dulce capital. It's about the Benjamins. It's about money. It's about the Benjamins, Dulce capital, dollar, you know, cha-ching, money. It's a straight up capitalist gangbang. They're fucking us all, and you know, it's just that is the point. It's about capital, capitalist exploitation of the masses. And I think once you start talking too much about race, or you get too much into race, even though I do think there's a racial component to this, at least in one way or another, it does come back around in some cases to race when you're dealing with the exploitation or oppression of the lower classes of the black people in this country. And certainly when you're dealing with Hispanic immigrants and other people, there is a racial component to that. And you certainly see this in who we go to war with. I mean, when was the last time we bombed a white country? I mean, there was some shit going on in Ukraine, I know of, for example, but largely it is Arab countries, it's brown countries that we bomb. So there is a racial component to all of this, I think. There's one in there somewhere, somehow, some way. But At the end of the day, it's economic class. And once you start talking too much about race or gender or sexual orientation or religion or culture or anything else, it becomes counterproductive. You're only splitting hairs and you're kind of muddying the water, and it becomes counterproductive. And you now get people, or what you're doing rather, what they're probably trying to do, if you think about what the Democrats are doing, they're getting, in many cases, the lower classes to now fight among each other over who's getting screwed worse. It's like the white people are like, no, they hate white people more. The black people are like, no, they hate us more. You're fighting over this. This isn't an Olympic sport. It's you're being railroaded. You're being shafted. They're screwing you out of money. They're exploiting you and your labor and the fruit of your labor, and they're taking your money. You're doing the work, and then they make the money. It's a screw job. It's a con job. In the United States of America, what is happening and what you're seeing is a con job. That is what's important. And what should be uniting the races and the two genders or whatever, however many genders, now they say there are 50, who knows. But what should be uniting people, sexual orientations, what should be uniting you rather than dividing you is to unite against greed, to unite around the concept of equity, economic equity, and class, and the fact that you are getting screwed and you are getting railroaded, and how you're screwed and railroaded, and how do we take back our country? Instead, you're fighting over it. Instead of hating the people that are exploiting you and exploiting the labor of other people in other countries and exploiting illegal immigrant and migrant labor and exploiting these people, it's how do we screw ourselves and fight among ourselves over something that should be uniting us, instead of fighting the con job, fighting the rich capitalists, sociopaths and their sociopathy and con job against us. And you see this now, of course, in many Americans, they have this sense of the border. You see this among some people. That there are people that are so angry with the illegal immigrants, and some of them are just racist idiots, and they think they are a superior race, and they are the way they are. But there are others among them, white people, black people, different people in the United States, and black people often feel this way as well. It's not just a white thing, where it's almost, in some cases, not only are they against immigrant labor, they're even against, they even have an almost shoot first mentality. And you see this. We have to keep out the Hispanic people, keep out the immigrants, keep out the low-wage workers that are being shipped into the country that are not legal, that are being exploited, that have had their countries stolen from them by these corporate rat bastards. These corporate rats, these corporations, these evil bastards have stolen their countries. So these corporate bastards ship them in here now to work them for little money, and to even work them as maids in their fucking mansions while you people live in trailers. They're bringing these people in to work in their mansions, whether they have to hire you because they'd have to pay you something. The same reason they don't want to hire you for anything, and they don't want to hire a minimum wage. And I don't want to hear this bullshit about robots, because if they could come up with robots, were smart enough to take your job, they already would have, and they would have done it years ago. That's how you know they're bullshitting you. If they could fucking do that, they would have. And that's when you have a country and you have a government where you come in and you say, no, you know what, fuck you, asshole, you're not doing that. We're saying you're not going to do that because there's a real law that says you don't do that. And if you don't like it, tough shit. And if you had a good fucking country that cared about the people in this country, you would have a government that would make that law. And you would have that law. 1 minute. Oh, fuck off. All right, back to the porn. Rather let me do this first. All right, back to the porn. You would have that law that would say, no, you're not going to make robots, just like you're not going to work cheap, illegal, indentured servants and migrant labor. You're going to, if we're bringing these people in, and I think we should bring these people in, I say that is at least we can do after the way the corporations have fucked them. You have so many of these people living in the United States anyway, some of them for many, many years, some of them since childhood, some of them were born here. And I don't very well think you can just kick them out. And you have so many anyways, you might as well let more in. And what I would say do is let them in. And you know what you do? Legalize them. Because if you're legalizing them, they're not going to take your job. Because guess what, asshole? If the rich people have to fucking work them for the same thing they're working you for, you're not getting screwed out of a job and they're not getting exploited. And it's better around for everyone. But we need a fucking government that says you're not going to exploit these people, you're not going to work them, you're not going to rob them, just like you're not going to create robots to take our jobs, you're not going to exploit our damn jobs, exploit our jobs out of the country, because if you do that, we're going to do what they do in a lot of communist countries, and you're getting the death penalty. You're going to get fucked the way you're trying to fuck other people. But back to the porn. You know, this shoot on shot site mentality that some people have about immigration. This shoot on site mentality that you saw in places like New Orleans when they had Katrina all those years ago, where you had idiots buying guns to shoot looters, people trying to steal food out of a grocery store to feed their families, and or maybe they were stealing some car radio. Who gives a shit? But while you have this mentality of shoot on sight, that is exactly what we need, right? In a country that is already responsible for so many deaths, where so many people are already dying anyways, from drug overdoses, from fucking being executed, where you have innocent people die, where you have wars in countries, and we're raging wars and wars going on, and gang activity, and drive-bys, and police shooting people, and police beating people. We need you now going out, getting a gun, so your big fat redneck ass can shoot somebody trying to fucking steal a can of beans from a fucking dollar store. Are you on crack? But that is a mentality. That is the vapid capitalist mentality of this shallow shithole you call a nation. But it's class. It's economical, social economical class. It's not race. It's not gender. There is a racial component. As far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, I don't give a damn whether you like what I'm saying or not. I think men get fucked over worse than women. But when it comes to white and black people do. I do believe black people get fucked over worse than white people. I will say that. But that is not the core of the issue. That is not, or rather, that is not the core issue. That is not the main issue. The main issue is economic class, socio-economical class, or social-economic class, and greed. It's greed and rich people fucking everyone over and extorting labor because they don't have to work, and working you and then taking the hard work and the fruits of your hard labor and your income and taking money from you and what little money you have so that they can take your money and then they can trade it on Wall Street and they can give it to their criminal friends. Hell, even that's too big of a statement because like I said, they're psychopaths. They don't even have friends. They don't care about anyone. They don't make friends. They make acquaintances. They're crooks. You know, you watch a segment by Whitest Kids You Know. It was a sketch comedy show, and they did a segment called Clint Rebb, who was his politician, supposedly, who was running, and he talks about he doesn't make friends, he makes acquaintances. All of his motives are ulterior and so on and so forth. That's very true and very close to what they're doing. And it's a giant scam. It's a giant clusterfuck of the American working class and the American people. And you have a mass homeless rate. I've talked about general mutilation of infants. I've talked about the things that you do in this country, the way you're fucking people over, the way everything's about the dollar, the way we have, as the Communist Manifesto would say you would do, and as they would say you were doing. There is no common threads between the people. There is no unity of the people. There is no relationships. There is no fucking communionship of the people anymore, other than basic profit and currency, common currency trade, a trade of currency. It is a massive screw job and a railroading of the American people. 8666.